Today, I'm going to be talking about the 4 steps of magnificence, or success, or getting what you want on autopilot, or achieving the life that you want, or doing what you need to do, in other words, to get to where you want to be. So that is what I'm talking about today. And it's really, really simple as a step process. But it's one of those things where I have to always remind myself, okay? So this is never new for me, but it's always refreshing. And I can talk about many things when it comes to my work. Like taking responsibility, power of focus. And I mean, I could speak about those every day to the same person and I would not feel bad at all because it gets us to where we want to be. So when it comes to the 4 steps, this is going to be really, really important to make changes. And when we start to apply these steps, or I would say even more importantly, just becoming conscious of them, you can then, once we become conscious, we can start cultivating. I think that's one of the big keys about what I do, is that I'm trying to awaken something within you that allows you to realize you can get far more than you ever expected. And I only say that from my own experience because I was not in a good place when I was younger. I was depressed. I used to severe crazy anxiety and worries and feeling I wasn't good enough. And then suddenly I began to apply myself and start to learn with some help along the way, by the way. Like my father was instrumental in making those or helping me make those changes, as well as other people along the way, and general education. And but if we consider this as a way of understanding how the mind works, we can then utilize it for our advantage. Here's the thing, guys. We weren't given a manual for the brain. We come into this world and we don't know what we're really doing at times. We're completely unaware of how life is impacting on us, how other people are impacting on us, how our issues are being created to the point where they become habits and it just becomes a way of being in this world. We do not give the manual for the brain. So today is all about hopefully giving you one of those pages in the manual for your brain. I believe if we can get the brain on our side, now you can change brain to unconscious or subconscious, even your conscious mind. As we take ourselves as a whole, we can start to instigate change and make changes far quicker. So let's go into the steps. So the first step is this. The first thing we must remember is that we have a level of incompetence before we do anything. So let me explain what that really means, because it sounds pretty vague. So before you learn how to walk, you had no idea what walking was. Before you learned to drive, you had no idea how to drive. Before a certain word, before you learned that word, it wasn't in your existence, so you were incompetent at knowing what that word was. So through life, we start out from a place of being incompetent at what we're doing or what we're experiencing, because it was out of our reality. In fact, before your issue, if you've got an issue right now, there would be a time when you were even incompetent at running that issue, because it didn't exist until something created it in your life. So it could be an experience, it could be a decision, it could be a belief system, it could be a behavior. But before the behavior, before the limiting belief, before the limiting decision, before the experience, we were incompetent at that behavior or that issue. And it goes for everything. When a baby's learning to walk, or before they learn to walk, I should say, they had no idea what walking was. Before you knew what a chair was, you had no idea what a chair was. So it sounds pretty simple, right? We have a level of incompetence before we start anything. So why am I saying that? Well, the chances are, if you have a big goal and dream, you might not know how to get there, or you might not even have the skills, or you might not have the finer qualities or attributes to make that goal happen. But the key is, that's okay. Because if you had all the information to you presently, you would have achieved your outcome by now. So it makes sense that we don't know everything about how to achieve our success, our goal, our magnificence, our confidence, all those things that we want. At this point in time, or in regarding other situations, like I said, other behaviors, we had no conscious awareness of how to do what we were doing. Before walking, we had no conscious awareness of how to walk. Before learning to drive, we had no conscious awareness of how to drive because we'd never been in a car or we'd never witnessed someone drive. It was just out of our reality. So that is the first step of learning, okay? So what we have to do, and this is very important if you've got an issue, which many people don't realize, is the waking up part. So that goes on to the second step. So at first, many people are operating their issue or not realizing their potential because they know no different. Many people have had their issue for so long, they completely forget how awesome they are and how amazing they are because they've been clouded by conflict or issues or whatever it may be for that person. Now, if you want a goal, before you've ever achieved that goal, you don't know what it's like to achieve that goal. So we really don't know. So Laurie said, we don't know what we don't know. And I really should have just said that from the beginning because Laurie, you've summed it up right there. We don't know what we don't know. And when we think about that, after we move from that step is, if we don't know what we don't know, so I might lose you here for a second, but it'll become clear very soon. If we don't know what we don't know, the next step must be knowing. Okay, this is when we start to become awakened. That's why I said when we start to become awake. So some examples of this would be when we start to realize we have an issue. That is starting to become conscious that we're incompetent at something. We're now realizing, oh my goodness, I have anxiety. I just thought it was a way of being in this world, but now I know I have anxiety. I don't know how to let it go because we're incompetent at it, but we're now awake to the fact that we're incompetent. So we're becoming conscious. So and an example of achieving a goal is when we decide, actually there's more to life, and now we know what kind of goal that we want. We might not know how to get there because we're incompetent. We haven't got that in our existence. So we're consciously incompetent at getting that goal, letting go of that issue, or becoming magnificent in whatever you choose. So let's put it this way. If you want to change your career, the chances are you're going to be very incompetent at that new career you choose because you've never done it before. But we are now awake to the fact that we want a new career and maybe we've decided what that career is. And one more example for you to make it really clear. Before I started working with people, I had no idea how to work with people. But then I started to realize, having let go of my own issues, that I want to work with people. But I'm incompetent of how to work with people. I'm just now aware that I want to help someone. I want to be able to give service to the world. So that's the conscious incompetence. At first, we're unconsciously incompetent. We didn't know what we didn't know. But now we're starting to become aware. So the chances are, you are, at the very least, you're at this step right here. You're either aware of the goal that you want, but you have no idea how to get it, or you're aware of the issue that you may have, low self-esteem, anxiety, worries, doubts, whatever it is, but you don't know how to let go of the issue. So you are on, if this is you, by the way, I'm not saying everyone is this, but for anything new we're learning, or once we become conscious of something, or being aware of the goal that we want, or being aware of the issue we have, that is step 2, which is being consciously aware that we're unable to change right now, or unconsciously being aware how to get to where we want to be. So we're consciously now aware. And one more example would be, and I like to give examples just so you get this really clear, because when you get it in your system, it works. So if you could imagine a child learning to walk, the first step is they have no idea how to walk. They've never seen it because they're just like a baby. They don't have that conscious awareness yet. And then they start to see people walking. Now they know that people can walk, but they don't know how to walk because they've never done it yet. So there's a baby, they're like, oh, I want to be able to do that. So the next step for that child is what? What does a child do? Or a baby do when they're starting? to decide if they want to learn to walk. They try to walk. Now, I say try because try usually means failure. If we try to do something, it means we're never really going to do it. I'll try to be there on time, but chances are you won't be on time. I'm going to try and stick to this weight loss program, but chances are you're not going to do it because try implies tried, which implies failure. So as a child, step 3 starts to become consciously competent at it. So you begin to see a baby start to walk and they're pretty ridiculous at it at first. They stumble, they fall over, and they're very robotic. They're trying to utilize their muscles. They're trying to make these movements work, but because their body has never done that, it's very, very conscious. And another example is if you've been drunk before and you're trying to pretend that you're not drunk, you try to walk properly and you never walk properly because you're trying too hard, because walking is not a conscious process, it's an unconscious process. So we're consciously trying to make sure we're okay, where really we're not okay, and that doesn't work. And it's the same thing for a baby. Not the alcohol, but learning to walk. They're consciously trying something, but they haven't got the flow to it. They're not doing it automatically. Now let's take it in the context of you, maybe, if you're on that second level of being consciously incompetent at something. So you're consciously incompetent of letting go of an issue, but you want to. You haven't got your, you know your goal, but you don't know how to get there. The next step is when we're starting to become consciously competent. That is when the baby is trying to learn to walk. They're doing things consciously. And this is where you may be starting to utilize all the things that I'm telling you. You're starting to think, well, maybe this Joseph guy is saying something and I'm going to start to apply it into my life. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm consciously creating things or habits or ideas into my life. That is the conscious competence. When you start to become consciously competent at something, it becomes easier. It's not natural. It's not automatic. But it becomes easier. You're starting to do something on your own accord consciously. One example would be when you're learning to drive, you get in the car after about 10, 20 lessons. You're not great at driving, but you can drive. You're very aware, you're very sensory aware of all the things that's going around you. You got your gears, you got your mirrors, you got the brakes, you got the accelerator, you got the speedometer, you got a person next to you. You've definitely got to watch out for those people on the outside of the car. Definitely. With the red lights, green lights, you're very consciously overwhelmed. So that is a nice step that we have to be aware of. And I say nice because we have to be gentle with ourselves. Because at one point we had no idea what we didn't know. We didn't know we had an issue. Then we start to wake up, step 2, becoming conscious that we don't know how to get to a goal or how to let go of an issue. Step 3 is becoming consciously aware and start to apply something. Hopefully it's what I'm telling you or other people. Reading books, educating yourself, whatever your goal is, you're starting to consciously apply the steps. When you start to consciously apply it, it's not easy, but you can start to do it. It can be a struggle, like learning to drive. You're very aware of everything, but you can drive. For that child who is walking, but they're doing it very robotically because they haven't quite got the ability to do that yet. They're still learning, but they can walk. For someone who's using my processes to let go of, say, anxiety or a headache or whatever it is, they're starting to apply what I'm saying, and it's working. I don't know how it's working, but it's working. They're doing something and something is happening. They just don't know how to do it on autopilot because they're consciously doing it. They're consciously doing it. And doing things consciously, guys, is hard sometimes. It is not always easy. It is not always comfortable and natural. Because why it's not natural? Because it's not second nature. And that's where it gets interesting because there becomes this tipping point. Once you become aware, the first step of being that you're incompetent at something, or sorry, that's the second step, becoming conscious that you're incompetent at something, then you start to apply information and you start to do what I say, for example. You don't have to do what I say at all, for that matter, but you can do that. Once you do that for a period of time, a prolonged amount of time, it becomes second nature. And that's why I say at this critical step of step 3, being consciously competent at something, consciously doing something over and over again, practicing, learning, applying, all these things, it becomes easier with each and every day. And it becomes easier because of this reason. You're starting to go on the tipping point to step 4. What's step 4? This is the mastery. Well, it's not quite mastery. I've got a hidden step 5 for you, but this is where it gets really good. Because you start to become unconsciously competent. Now, what that means is you've been doing something consciously for so long that after a while, your unconscious mind is starting to listen to you. It's saying, hey, I notice that you're doing this thing all the time. What I'm going to do for you, conscious mind, I'm going to do it on your behalf. And that is exactly why when you start to learn to drive and you start doing for 2 months, 3 months, now you start to get from A to B and you do not even think about it. You don't even become aware of half of your journey because you've been doing it on autopilot. Your unconscious mind, the magnificent thing it is doing it on your behalf. And that's where the magic happens, because if you start consciously applying the type of things I'm saying and you start to make it a habit as a way of being, even as a philosophy of taking responsibility, putting your attention where it needs to be, applying these steps I'm saying right now, if you start to do that consciously, your unconscious mind will say to you, I will do it on your behalf. So someone just said, Erica just said, how long does it take for your unconscious mind to do it on your behalf? I have no blooming idea. Because it all varies between the person. The person learning to walk may take a few weeks to do it naturally. And that can be different from the person learning to drive. So it could be different because of the ingrainedness of the issue or the acceleration of your transformation. So if you're getting the learnings at an unconscious level, or you're getting the right support, like say, for example, you're doing it alone, but then you start to hire a coach, then of course, if you've got a coach in your life, you've got someone to mentor you, you're going to get better. It's like an athlete. They can go down the gym by themselves, get very comfortable at things, but until they get the outside perspective of a specialist, then of course that athlete can dramatically increase their results. Now, of course, that athlete could do it all by themselves and get there eventually, but sometimes it varies, in other words. I'm saying depending on how long we've had the issue, the intention, satisfying the problem, making sure we've got adequate resources or shining a light and on the right resources, getting the right learnings and applying this. So it's really one of those questions I can't personally answer. But you could go down the philosophy of it takes like 21 days to make a habit unconscious. I don't quite agree with that because it depends on the habit. It depends on the finer points of, say if someone's depressed and they're doing this new habit, it might not completely hit on 21 days because they've got secret unconscious reasons for keeping the depression, which will be another talk, I think. And I could speak about days as to why we're not letting go of issues. But it really does vary, in other words. But the key is that tipping point. The more you start to become conscious, so let's go back to it. We don't know what we don't know, and then we start to weigh him and go, actually, Joseph, I want that monetary goal, or I want confidence, or I want to let go of anxiety or worries. And then once we wake up, we start to apply certain information based on how to get you to where you want to be. So that could be utilizing my work, as I said. And as you start to utilize my work, you start to do it consciously. Step 3, you're becoming consciously competent at this process. You're saying, well, Joseph, I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps that you've coached me on, and I'm doing it more and more, and it's getting easier and easier. I really appreciate it. I'm getting great results now. It's not happening on autopilot, but it's happening. That is step 3. But then after that period of time, that tipping point begins to happen where your unconscious mind goes, hey, I've noticed that you've been doing this for a long time now. Could be a week, could be a month, could be 6 months, depending, as I said. But I notice you've been doing this for a long time. So what I'm going to do for you, conscious mind, I'm going to do it on your behalf. And that's when it passes over. It's almost like we've been doing it for so long, you're now saying to your unconscious mind, do it for me. and it does it on your behalf, just like driving, just like walking, just like how you do your job at work. You had no idea how to do it at first, and still you started to learn it, apply it consciously, and now you can sign off those accounts, or you can do whatever you do for a living automatically in your sleep almost, because it's natural. So the key, or the lesson here, well, there's a few lessons, but one lesson is wake up. Wake up that there's more to life. Wake up that we do not have to be in that situation. Where you are, by the way, I mean, like I said, you're beyond step one, because many people are oblivious that life can be different. They're oblivious because they think that's always the way it's meant to be, that they're always meant to be in debt, or they're always meant to be depressed because it feels like a belief system or an identity. But step two is becoming awake. That's where you guys are, at the very least. I'm sure many of you are above that on either level 3 or 4 as well. Or 5, the 5th one. But at the very least, we're at level 2, saying, I know that I'm not very good at something, or I now know I've got this issue, or I now know I've got this goal, I just don't know how to get there. The next step, step 3, is to becoming consciously aware of that and start to put some action into it. And then step 4 is it happens on your behalf. So that other part is that be gentle on yourself. If you feel like giving up, I'm going to talk about this in another subject as well, by the way. But if you feel like giving up on that 3rd step, so you've been consciously trying over and over again, but you feel like giving up, remember why you started in the first place. Why did you start? Think about the why. I mean, I've done an audio about that and a video about it recently. Why you're doing what you're doing. Because you want happiness, because you want more money, because you want peace, because you want contentment, you want confidence. And it's far better to go for your dream and your goals and your aspirations rather than living a lifetime of regret. So if you ever feel like that 3rd step of trying is getting too much, remember why you are doing what you're doing. And that means it will give you that extra push. It will keep you moving forward, because that taps into mission and vision, which is one of the biggest things that can drive us forward. But when we start to fear as if we're not going to get there, or we fear or doubt that something's happening in our life and we feel like giving up, what's happened? We forgot about our mission and vision. We've got to tap back into that. We've got to re-energize it. We've got to move forward and keep moving forward, learning as we go, driving forward. And then, as I said, that's step 3. We move into step 4, which is unconscious competence. That was step 1, wasn't it? So this unconscious competence, it becomes natural to you. It becomes a way of being in this world where you naturally become magnificent at what you do. And you can take a long time in that. I mean, not many people get great overnight, but over a period of time where your unconscious mind cultivates this, it gets better and better and better, bigger and bigger and bigger, and it works on your behalf. Now, to put it into a clear idea for you, many of the things that I talk about on this video, or all my other videos, I'm not doing it completely consciously. Things bubble up to me. If I were to try to think consciously about all the things I'm going to say to you, I'd get overwhelmed, I'd get worried, I'll get insecure, I'll get messed and can't even say the word because I'm trying to think consciously now. I would get jumbled up in my thoughts because I'm operating from a place of being too conscious. Like I said, if you become conscious of how you walk, it's hard to walk because it's a natural process walking now. So if I try to consciously think about what I'm going to say today, it's not going to really flow. And I want you to get in that flow state. And I like to think I'm in a flow state whenever I do my talks, my one-to-one sessions, my mind mastery members, my hypnosis, or even when I'm going for a run. I've been doing all these things just like you guys walking. It's a cooperation between you consciously and unconsciously. Many people try to change just consciously, but it's not about your conscious mind. It's about your unconscious mind and getting it on your side. Yeah, put the work in consciously, but your unconscious mind will back that up tenfold if you keep going. So tap into your why. If you ever feel like failing, or you feel like you're giving up, tap into your mission and vision as to why you do what you do. Move beyond that. See it bigger and brighter in your mind. Imagine the successful completion of having achieved your goal and how much emotionally free you'll be, feeling that inner contentment, that inner peace of being who you are authentically in the world, out of fear, out of scarcity. That should motivate you. Then you keep on doing the things that you're doing consciously, and then it will start to become unconscious. Now, the fifth and final step, which is one of those secret steps, and I call that real mastery. That's what I really call it. It's mastery. It's where you start to become consciously aware of the unconscious processes. And one of my examples was when I was doing a training to do what I do, I was listening to this guy, and he would say to us, what was I doing here? As in, like, when he was working with a client, what was he doing? And people would say these questions to him. So, I noticed that you said this word. Why did you say that word? Now, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm sure he has no idea because he's with a client. He's working with someone, and you're just, like, fully immersed. But he had the ability to have that meta-awareness of unconscious competence and conscious competence. And that to me is mastery. That you're like the observer of your unconscious mind. You are the, I'm going to say dictator. It's got negative connotations, but you know what I mean. You're dictating the flow of your energy. You're dictating the wisdom and the application of what you do. Now, I'm not saying that I have that all the time, but I tell you what, when I'm doing my seminars, my events, when I'm working with my clients and I'm doing my podcast, my videos, I tap into that emotional state of being consciously aware of what's happening unconsciously, like a meta view. And that's where you start to get it. I'm not saying I get that in every area of my life, but I have honed in and cultivate it. I mean, it takes time to get to that level. And it will be the same thing if I learned to play a certain sport I never did, or I never learned, or never actively participated in, or a new job. I wouldn't get to that level for a long time. But I've been doing this for 15 years. I would like to think that would happen. And I believe that has happened to me. So what I'm really trying to say here is if you keep on going from step 2, because I know you're there already, to step 3, consciously applying these things. Step 4, doing things unconsciously. And then the hidden one, step 5, where it happens at a conscious, unconscious level of mastery, where you are becoming the observer of what's really happening in your world. And you're starting to be the dictator of your destiny. You are in control in what you do. So I hope you enjoyed this today. I know I did. It's a really cool subject, which I enjoy. Oh, my goodness, I just took down my mic by fiddling around with it. So I'll just quickly readjust that. I think that's okay. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that video. Of this live video. So what happens when you get conscious, get out of state, you forget these things. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. And tomorrow, I do plan to be here again at 5:30 Central Time, which is 3:30 West Coast, which is 6:30 East Coast, which is 11:30 p.m. in England. And beyond that, I have no idea. But I really hope you enjoy that. And just remember, what we have to remember is being gentle. Consciously applying what I'm saying will work far greater for you if you keep on going. Yes, there's ways to accelerate this by getting more close support, whether it be on a group level or a one-to-one level, working with someone or working in a group. And that's why I have my programs which do that. I mean, someone just posted in the Mind Mastery today that they're accelerating in their success, and he's only been a member for a week. So that's awesome. I mean, it's even blowing my mind how good that's happening. But ultimately, you will get there if you start to apply. Okay, so have the most wonderful day, guys, and I really look forward to speaking to you tomorrow.